young, he's handsome.
They know it. Never talk about who's gonna stop me. Well, ain't nobody gonna stop me.
I'm showing the world that you can stay yourself and get respect from the world.
There are many, many films about Muhammad Ali. We think we tell a story in a kind of complete way.
This film, it's the whole picture. It's the good, the bad, it's the inspiring, it's everything.
I am the greatest.
I am drawn to boxing when the person and the bouts seem to reflect something larger. And the person who's doing the fighting is one of the most extraordinary human beings that I have ever met.
Boxing was his platform that he used to be able to change the world.
He was a pioneer, he was a revolutionary, a guy known simply as the greatest.
We talked to a lot of people interested in boxing and Muhammad Ali. Todd Boyd, Gerald Early, the novelist, Walter Mosley, a scholar of Islam, Sherman Jackson, and we interviewed his family, his brother, Rahman, his daughter, Rashida, and another daughter, Hana.
There was a clip where my dad was saying, "You know how your daddy's the greatest?"
Do you know your dad is the baddest man in the world?
I've never seen that clip before, and I just had tears was rolling down my face.
Maybe you'll come for the boxing, maybe you'll come for the religion, maybe you'll come for the politics or the conflict. But I think you leave with an elevated sense of an amazing American.
To have that chutzpah and to be a black man in America was it was outlandish.
I'm so pretty. I shook up the world.
Muhammad Ali starts September 19th, only on PBS.
Our Earth. Ever in flow and motion. A dynamic symphony of forces, all working together. But in recent years, it's beginning to become clear that our world is poorly prepared to cope. And time is running out.
Every continent is burning. People are losing their homes, ecosystems are being destroyed. We're now over the line.
Over 26,000 species are currently threatened with extinction.
It doesn't even make the headlines. No one even knows about it.
There seem to be some serious conflicts of interest going on.
The industry is just concerned with growth.
This was the elephant in the room no one wanted to talk about.
I want others to see for themselves. This is all we've got. This little blue miracle.
This planet is our home, and it is up to us what happens now. History has shown that when we stand together, we can achieve great things. The clock is ticking.
The truth is we shouldn't be asking how much does it cost to address poverty, but how much does it cost not to address it. The truth is moral policies are good economic policies.
Civil rights leader and social activist William Barber is half a world away in Rome right now, fighting a familiar fight to help end poverty. And we're happy to have him join us now via Zoom to talk about his mission and the conference on ending poverty, a conference that just wrapped up. Reverend Barber, we are truly honored to have you join us right now. How did you approach this conference and this mission, the awareness to bring to this issue?
Well, first of all, I was humbled and honored to be invited by the Vatican and to be invited by economist Jeffrey Sachs, the head of the academy here. You know, this conference was very truthful in that poverty is about policy failure and not individual failures. And then when you have 1% of the people who have more money than they could ever spend, while half of the world struggles to survive every day, the fact that we have 140 million poor and low wealth people in America, nearly 43% of the country, the fact that we have 4.7 million people who are poor and low wealth in North Carolina, we have a crisis of civilization and democracy. And the fact that we can't pass a small $310 billion a year package to take a step in the right direction, while 84% of all COVID relief went to corporations, and in 2020, billionaires made nearly $2 trillion and 8 million more people fell into poverty. And since 2001, we've spent $21 trillion in war. This is the result of policy choices. And what this conference says is that the Bible condemns it over and over again as sin. And in this conference, economists, philosophers, world leaders, the Pope, the Eastern Orthodox Pope, are saying this is sin. This is a spiral downward. And people of faith, along with the moral agency of poor and low wealth people, can't be silent anymore. We must commit to being poor in spirit, which means we're committed to fraternity and brotherhood and sisterhood, love, justice, and speaking the truth, because we do not have a scarcity of resources in the world. We have a scarcity of moral consciousness that we must change for the very sake of this world. And we have to say that's the way out. We cannot continue like this.
Reverend Barber, do you believe in your heart that the people at this conference will be able to walk away with actionable items to address this poverty? And what will that look like?
Well, not only do I believe it, I know they will. There was a deep commitment. You know, this is frightening with these stats, but it's also impending and inspiring. We know we have to have no other choice. 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights guaranteed everybody should not have basic rights. 70 years and we've not done it. But now in this world, we have the resources to do it, the ideas to do it. We just have to have the movement. So I said the other day that we were going to have a mass poor people's low-wage workers assembly and moral march on Washington next year, June 18th. The room resounded with support. They even said we need to talk about making this a worldwide day.
We need a worldwide poor people's campaign and a global call to moral revival. On June 18, 2022, we are planning a mass poor people's and low-wage workers assembly and moral march on Washington, regardless of how the Build Back Better plan passes. And we are hoping that others will join in their countries around the world.
We have to, build power among the poor and low wealth, change the narrative, and show this world that it is morally inconsistent, it's constitutionally indefensible, and is economically insane to continue down this path, and we don't have to.
Генерал Золотов.
For the last 10 years, Navalny's sophisticated YouTube videos have made him Vladimir Putin's most effective opponent.
Человек в своей тяге к роскоши, к богатству спятил совершенно.
It wasn't always this way. These are his first, less than impressive efforts from 2007.
Так, пробуем горизонтальное положение.
But Navalny's confidence in the possibilities of the internet was unshakable.
He told me that this is the future of politics, and the young generation, they are in the internet, they are online, and talking to them is the future of Russia.
Вы относитесь к партии «Единая Россия».
И партия «Единая Россия» — это партия коррупции.
First he developed his LiveJournal account, then appeared Twitter, Facebook, and then after some time YouTube. So it was a very gradual development and emergence of Navalny's social media empire.
Most Russian TV stations were effectively mouthpieces for Putin and his party, United Russia.
Сегодня мы отмечаем годовщину знакового для всей страны события – референдума, в ходе которого жители Крыма высказались за воссоединение с Россией.
The internet, however, was still free.
И все мои видео были «Здесь дворец», «Этот украл», «Этот распилил», «Эти бандиты», «Эти...»
Navalny's live broadcasts and investigations into corruption were seen by tens of millions.
скупает недвижимость на итальянском озере Комо, как будто он не пропагандист-патриот из России, а голливудская звезда.
Over the years, he's made hundreds of videos from all over Russia. And on the day before the poisoning, he's in Siberia to shoot his latest one. He's here to support two anti-Putin candidates standing for election and, as always, highlighting local corruption.
УК жилища, и эти ребята берут много денег. Смотрим содержание платежки, содержание многоквартирного дома.
Corruption is something that every Russian sees in her life every single day. And so that's an issue that sort of gets people's attention and that focuses these sometimes disparate public expressions of discontent against the Kremlin and the Putin regime into one very clear direction.
Это наша страна, и эти жулики крадут наши деньги.
Я думаю, людей подкупает, конечно, его бесстрашие. И да, я думаю, он нашел этот подход к людям, то есть он смог наглядно показать порочность системы, всю эту коррупцию чудовищную.
Знаете, в фантастических фильмах так бывает. Смотришь на город и прекрасный мирный пейзаж. Физическим зрением то картина совсем иная. Все это, весь город, настолько оплетено паутиной коррупции, что все до единого, пенсионер, велосипедист, целующаяся парочка, они просто превращены в разновидность добычи.
Typically, Camp X-Ray is off limits to reporters, but on a hillside overlooking it, you get a glimpse. I've been covering Guantanamo since the very start, and as they've cut back on the transparency, given fewer and fewer opportunities, allowed us to speak to fewer people and see less and less, I've come to taking photographs of the signs. It's a different kind of story, but one I've been able to tell.
Throughout the pandemic, we've continued to work on our project entitled Ghost Factory, which is inspired by the residents and the vast deserted factories in Johnson City, an upstate town near Binghamton, New York. We began to imagine what stories were hidden in the walls of these factories. We've interviewed over 30 people from Johnson City, all ages and backgrounds, about what locations and buildings in town hold their stories. We got permission to go into one of the former factories that hadn't been touched in decades, and we saw broken windows, leaking ceilings, and nature coming up through the floors. Piles of rubbish and limestone stalactites coming down from the ceilings from the leaks. And we found remnants of old photos and newspaper articles that had been pasted to the columns. We loved the magnificence of the space and the evidence of what time had done to it. We were there with our collaborator, Peter Barber, to film scenes that would be part of the projections of the performance. Here we were working in this room that had the large puddle from leaks, and we decided to film our reflection and also create occasional ripples in the water. We were looking for ways that we might embody the voices and stories that might be hidden in these walls. On that same trip, we also filmed in what's the former spool factory. It's a vast empty space where we could work with light and shadow, silhouette, and we worked a lot with finding ways to create large distortions in the shadows. So once we had this footage, we brought it back to our studio, and we've been developing a set that has movable parts to change the geometry and architecture of the stage space. This is some footage from rehearsals in our studio. Here are some sections that we created where we're working with a single scrim and performing in front and behind it.
Active shooter drills, domestic terrorists armed with AR-15s, news reports littered with gun violence. Gun-fueled radicalization is everywhere now. But how the hell did a culture of hunting, target shooting, and responsible gun ownership devolve into this? It's the question I asked myself thousands of times in my years as a firearms industry executive. As someone who grew up using guns on a ranch, working in the gun industry was at first a dream. Those early years in the business were infused with the same responsibility and decency my father taught me. But over time, I found myself at the heart of an industry that was changing a nation. As it all accelerated, norms were broken, responsibility was sacrificed, and the cracks in our democracy were emerging. No one from the inside has ever gone public with this truth, because the NRA has a powerful web of lies and a police state designed to keep people like me quiet. But we don't have to live in fear of extremists wielding loaded assault rifles. Parents shouldn't have to break down in tears when they drop their children off at school. And our nation cannot just keep marching towards the brink of armed civil war. Until we understand how this all happened, we can't hope to start fixing any of it. This is my story, but you are going to recognize yourself in these pages too, because we've all played a part. Every single one of us is in this gunfight together.
The ocean is our arena, our home, our inspiration. This year, the World Surf League launched the We Are One Ocean petition. The goal was both inspiring and imperative: protect and conserve 30% of the global ocean by 2030. We activated at WSL competitive events and partnered with surfing's biggest stars, collaborated with 9 ambassadors from different backgrounds to expand the conversation, created a global coalition of organizations in conservation, sports, and sustainability, and funded a grant program benefiting nonprofits around the globe. In the end, We Are One Ocean lived up to its name, bringing together over 150 countries, 90-plus organizations, and garnering more than 400 million cumulative reach. We now deliver our petition to the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity with the same message, but with a sea of new advocates. World leaders must protect and conserve 30% of the global ocean by 2030. We all depend on it. We are one ocean.
When I sign this crime bill, we will have the means by which we can say punishment will be more certain.
The rapid rate of incarceration and tough on crime tendencies began to grow in the early 70s. What the 1994 crime bill did was accelerate and certify this general direction, rationalized and justified through argument about black criminality.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy.
We've caged millions of people and destroyed families and destroyed the fabric of communities. I think a reimagined justice in this country starts with rehumanizing each other.
The justice system is innately constructed around white supremacy and about who is worthy and who is unworthy.
There are some underlying values that reflect the system, and that underlying value is racism. It's almost like we have to re-envision what would life be like if we created a place where people can be accountable, but also people can be human.
I believe that change is within our grasp.
I reimagine justice as a world where the pain and trauma of people's lives is met with healing and compassion instead of with punishment and cages.
We need to make sure that people in our community are cared for, people in our community are supported, people in our community get what they need to be successful.
The fundamental value that should lie at the core of a justice system 25 years from now should be a commitment to human dignity.
I imagine a society where healthcare is readily available, access to nutritious foods are readily available, all of the things that we know set us up for success.
Sometimes a starting point for reform is like, we need some new paint. We're not talking about new paint, right? We're talking about like upending a justice system that's been around for hundreds of years. And that requires dreaming in a way that none of us are actually used to. It should be the people who are most impacted by the justice system answering that question of what does a reimagined system look like.
It's difficult for me to reimagine justice, I must say. What does freedom look like, really? And I'm sad to say that I don't know what it looks like. The best that I can do is to try to work at it every day to make the change that I can in that 24 hours. This is, I think, the magic of reimagining justice. We will sit in rooms together, we will be in neighborhoods together, we will push and advocate for policies together that will make what seems impossible very possible.
वाह, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। गिनती खाती। हमने अभी तक वो फोन चलाया भी नहीं है, डर लग रहा है कि कहीं बिगड़ ना जाए, कहीं कुछ ना हो जाए। ऐसा समय ही आ गया है कि उसके बगैर हम नहीं मतलब पीछे रह जाएंगे। मुझसे तो पूछते हैं, तो मैं भी पूछ लेती हूँ कि आप कौन से कास्ट के हैं। अब वो कहते हैं मैं ब्राह्मण हूँ, तो मैं भी कह देती हूँ मैं भी ब्राह्मण हूँ।
जो खबर लिखनी होती है उसमें पैसा नहीं लगता है,
इसलिए हमसे उतनी ही बात करिए जितना समझ में आए, उससे ओवर नहीं।
हमारे प्रदेश में दलित औरतों का पत्रकार के रूप में कोई सोच भी नहीं सकता। 14 साल में हमने इस मानसिकता को काफी हद तक बदला है।
तो इन दबंग लोगों ने क्या किया, उसको पत्थर मारकर हत्या कर दी और किसी पर भरोसा नहीं। एक लहरियां ही ऐसे न्याय दिला सकती हो।
एक हैरानी वाली बात है कि थाने को पता नहीं, पुलिस स्टेशन को पता नहीं है,
क्योंकि मैं उस जगह से हूँ।
मारू है।
मेरे लिए तो बहुत ही रिस्की है।
कभी 11 बजे, कभी 12 बजे, कोई टाइमिंग है नहीं है।
इस जगह पे मैं हूँ, उस जगह पे अगर आप होते तो क्या करते?
पहले अपना काम बाद में देखते।
मुझे तो नहीं लगता है। जो आपके साथ संगठन है, वो देश के भविष्य में किस तरह भागीदारी में है?
संघ शक्ति कलयुग है, संगठन है, संगठन में शक्ति हो।
डर लग रहा दीदी अभी तो। खबरें कहाँ गईं? कोई खबर दिख ही नहीं रही है। जो हमारी कवरेज होगी वो अन्य मीडिया से बहुत अलग होगी।
हर कोई को जानना चाहिए कि हाँ हम पत्रकार थे, एक महिला पत्रकार, और किस तरह की पत्रकारिता हमने की है।
मेरा दिल हौसला देता है मेरे लिए।
If our climate were a machine, working in perfect synchronicity to make our planet habitable, then the excessive carbon dioxide that we emit would be the loose screw, putting it all in jeopardy. But what does that mean? The climate is so complex. Unravelling and understanding it is, well, not easy. Fortunately, there are quite a lot of climate experts who know how it's done. The Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, for instance. The Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research analyses how much we have loaded the dice of our climate. Global warming is messing with our planet's ice masses, making sea levels rise, and increasing the probabilities of extreme weather events. That means heavier rainfalls, as well as more severe heat waves. Now that is bad weather. These conditions can put harvests at risk, and if unabated, might not only destabilise economies, but also drive social inequalities. And, in places already experiencing political or social tensions, additional climate stress can trigger conflicts and contribute to migration. We are truly pushing things to the edge. And if we keep pushing and, just push things too far, we find ourselves beyond tipping points. We might face a hardly imaginable future. On a brighter note, though, when the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research calculates possible future scenarios, it is also working on sustainable solutions. And because people have actually listened to the many climate experts worldwide, historic milestones like the Paris Climate Agreement have been put in place. Based on scientific insights, countries all over the world agreed to work on keeping global warming to well below 2 degrees. That's pretty cool. And while politics is finally beginning to catch up, research and science is speeding things up in other areas. Think economy and finance. We could divest money and move towards and beyond clean technology solutions. Smarter power grids and more flexible networks could make volatile renewable energy supplies more stable. Putting a price on carbon dioxide emissions could prevent our atmosphere from being used as a free waste dump. And yes, our lifestyle needs a makeover, because nothing is more en vogue than saving the planet. The Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research is right at the forefront of identifying problems and developing solutions. They tell it like it is. So, let's act on the facts.
Maya Moore became one of the most decorated players in the WNBA in history in just her first 8 seasons of her career. But Maya decided before the 2019 season to put down the basketball and pick up a different fight, the fight for criminal justice reform.
They overturned it, y'all.
When I made the decision to not be a professional athlete for that first year, it was really out of a desire to just prioritize the things that I was being convicted are most urgent. And it's really interesting how 2 years after that decision, we are literally being kind of forced to address some of these things that I was moving in that direction.
How deep is a commitment to a cause that it compels you to walk away from the accolades, the trophies, the game you love, and the life you know? Ask Maya Moore, who took a leave from professional basketball at the zenith of her career to fight for justice.
Maya Moore announcing today that she wants to focus on her family and some ministry dreams.
We need to be people before players right now and just say something because we're hurting.
We have a chance to really take this time and energy to actually do something about what's going on.
People were questioning, why are you stepping away from the game? Like, that has time, that can wait. And now, 2 years later, a man is free because of her.
As athletes, we want things to be fair. People don't want to watch a fixed game. They want to watch a fair game. And so that's all we're asking for is, in our justice system, let's be fair. Let's make it equal for every person to have the truth be shown and treat it with respect and dignity.
Maya's journey through the criminal justice system was a sobering experience, testing her faith in people and institutions.
The biggest challenge, I think, has been trying to stay encouraged when the system and the people and the leaders that you've entrusted to protect you are the ones actually oppressing you.
This court will issue a judgment granting petitioner a conditional writ of habeas corpus and orders that his convictions be vacated and the petitioner be discharged from custody.
One of the most rewarding things I've been able to do at that time is to show up and to be present and to advocate for Jonathan and for the general cause of what it really comes down to is dignifying people and saying there's no one that is beneath getting justice.
One case at a time, one step at a time. That's how change is made. And Maya is up for the challenge. She is aware of the problems and is committed to finding long-term solutions, because in the struggle to level the social justice playing field, there is a long way to go.
We don't know when we will see Maya Moore on the court again. And yes, her presence is definitely missed. But as we can see, Maya is busy changing the world. We'll be back after the break.
We're living in very anxious times. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world.
People are afraid and they want to hide behind closed borders.
Societies are divided and the spaces of contestation are becoming more explosive and in some cases violent.
People are questioning the rationality. People are questioning the established institutions and norms.
It's an onslaught not just on immigrants' rights, but on Muslim rights, on reproductive rights, on LGBT rights.
This endless war on terror, the migration crisis, all of that is distorting democratic practice in the world.
We are, as the Open Society Foundation's part of a network who support a set of values and a set of principles and a set of ideas.
This vision of an open and humane society.
A society in which everybody's full potential as a human being is realized.
A belief
in the right of every individual to have certain levels of dignity, including freedom.
The freedom of expression.
The freedom of assembly and association.
The freedom of movement.
The right to protest. Voting rights. A free judiciary.
Equal justice and transparency and fairness.
And a government that is held accountable by its people.
And at the very heart of the idea of open society is that people can disagree, but they can still recognize the greater goal of being able to live in mutual respect, in peace.
OSF provides an opportunity to question power, to hold power to account. But the complexity of the fight is that power fights back.
Even though we are faced with seemingly intractable problems, we need the courage to step into this moment, to take up this challenge. If not us, then whom?
In order to have an open society, you have to mediate the tension between equality and liberty, popular sovereignty, and individual freedom, and it's a difficult task.
The philosophy of open society is very much to work with people on the ground who have that energy, who are doing the work and know the environment where they're operating.
Local advisors, local activists, they have the agency and the authority to be change agents in their country.
We are asking people to mobilize themselves. We need to provide the tools.
Now we're seeing the individual as part of a community of thinkers, of activists, writers, journalists, artists.
We're at a moment now where people's very lives are on the line. You need healthy institutions in civil society. You need them to be well run.
It doesn't matter which country you're in, you will find a remarkable group of courageous people speaking out against violations of rights. They are the voices we seek to support.
The only thing that matters is your passion for genuine change, how the world should be. The foundation does more than fund projects. We're engaged with ideas.
There are certain things one has to fight for, even if it's not popular.
One must always go to the space where the greatest pain is. We have to do that in a way that speaks to the ultimate values that we are trying to defend and promote.
This is tough work. Gets us into trouble. There are times when I wake up in the night and I wonder, is this what I really want to keep doing? It's really about my belief that a better world, a better society is possible.
This is exactly what a foundation like OSF was built for. The whole point is to maintain and to foster and to strengthen open society. And that means you're made for the moment when open society is threatened.
If you believe in something and you have the convictions towards it, you can really withstand insurmountable odds and really fight the fight.
Open society is always endangered, and it needs to renew itself by being tested and surviving.